Stop caring, not because nothing matters, but because you do. And because the more you care about everything, the more you forget who you are. You've done everything right. You've stayed on top of it all. You've perfected your timing, micromanaged your image, made sure you never dropped a single ball, and still something's off. You're not lazy, you're not broken. You're simply carrying things no human was meant to hold. You carry every possible outcome like they depend on your control. You carry the moods of people who never ask how you are. You carry a to-do list long enough to shame your sleep, your softness, your soul. And for what? We live in a world that tells you to care more, try harder, never stop. But no one tells you that control is a trick. And effort without alignment is exhaustion in disguise. Anthony de Mello once said, "It's not life that's hard, it's your illusions, your ambitions, your cravings." The pain isn't from reality, it's from the pressure you put on it. You're like a phone with 40 apps running in the background. None of them are visible, but all of them are draining your battery, the expectations, the image management, the what-ifs. The internal spreadsheet of how you think your life should look by now. It's no wonder you feel burned out. You're not tired because of life. You're tired because you're over-functioning to feel safe in a world that never guaranteed your safety. There's an old story. A man finds a stone that grants wishes. First, he wishes for money, then for influence, then admiration. But each wish comes with new anxiety, new responsibility, new distance from himself. Until finally, exhausted and alone, he throws the stone into the river, and for the first time in years, he feels free. That stone is your grip. Your endless needing to prove, to fix, to control. And maybe it's time to let it go. You post something honest. No one reacts, so you delete it. Not because it was wrong, but because you assume you were. That's not self-awareness, that's self-abandonment. Stop caring about whether it lands. Start noticing how it feels. You are not meant to hold this tightly, not to outcomes, not to identities, not to perfection. Clench your fist and try to catch the rain. Then open your palm and let it fall. Same rain, different posture. That's the difference between ego and self. One resists, one receives. So let the breath drop into your belly. Let the tension release from your jaw. Let the image you've built break, if it must. You'll be more whole in the fragments than you ever were in the performance. You don't need to grip the world any longer. You just need to stop caring about holding it together and start remembering that your soul was never made for strain. There's a version of you the world applauds, and a version of you the soul is still waiting for. You've performed the part so long you know the lines by heart. The smile, the structure, the role that earns approval but leaves you hollow. You want to change, but you keep one hand on the life that makes sense, even if it no longer fits. You say you want freedom, but you've mapped out a dozen backup plans in case you fail. But the truth is, nothing real begins until you stop protecting what isn't you anymore. There's a phrase whispered through history, burn the ships. A general lands with his army, orders their boats destroyed, and tells them, we win or we perish. But we do not go back. And maybe that's what transformation demands, not desperation, but devotion. Not recklessness, but a decision to stop living a half life, even if the full one scares you. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "You must be ready to burn yourself in your own flame." How could you rise anew if you have not first become ashes? But we hesitate. We edit ourselves into something likable. We shrink our desires into something achievable. We keep the mask within reach just in case the truth doesn't get clapped for. Stop caring about being consistent with your past. Your past doesn't need loyalty. Your truth does. You already know what's no longer aligned. That version of you who keeps pushing through dread. The one who wakes up performing. The one whose dreams got downsized in exchange for stability. Burn it. Let the fire take the script you've outlived. Let the ashes become the soil for something real. Carl Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but becoming isn't passive. It begins the moment you stop caring about the exit. This is the part where most people look back, where they second guess, where they say, maybe I should stay where it's safe, but not you. Burn the ships, burn the plan B. Burn the idea that your authenticity is too much or too late. And do it with reverence, not rage. Because you're not rejecting your life, you're returning to it. And from here on, there's no turning back. You're not tired from your job. You're not tired from your schedule. You're tired from pretending to be okay, pretending to be good, pretending to be fine while carrying a storm no one else can see. You've been trained to polish your words, to filter your emotions, to manage your personality like a product. Also, you can be liked, approved, safe. And in the process, you silenced something essential. You buried your disappointment. You replaced anger with apologies. You called it discipline when you were really suppressing yourself into silence. But here's the truth. What you suppress doesn't disappear. It waits. It festers in the dark. It shows up as burnout, numbness, fatigue you can't explain. Carl Jung said, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The shadow is not evil, it's exiled energy. The unloved version of you that still remembers how to feel, how to want, how to say no, how to take up space. But you don't let it speak. Because somewhere along the line you were taught that vulnerability is a threat and raw emotion is something to apologize for. So it leaks out sideways. As anxiety, as control, as shame. You're like a phone with 40 tabs open in the background, all draining your energy, all ignored. Old roles, old pain, old expectations, running, always running. You don't need more hustle, you need more honesty. There's a glowing box in the attic of your soul, and you've been afraid to open it, assuming it contains something shameful, but it doesn't. It contains you. The version of you that never got to be. The voice you buried to stay likable. The need you dismissed so others wouldn't leave. You keep saying you want peace, but you won't find it in avoidance. Because healing isn't a clean slate, it's a homecoming. You're not broken. You are backed up with truth. Plato told a story of prisoners born inside a cave. All they see are shadows cast on the wall. They mistake those shadows for reality. One day one of them escapes. The light is blinding. He stumbles. It hurts, but he keeps walking. And eventually he sees the sun. He sees reality. But the others? They stay behind. Because the shadows are familiar, and familiarity feels safer than freedom. That's your shadow. It's not a curse. It's the first step out of the cave. You don't heal by becoming someone new. You heal by remembering who you locked away. So stop caring about being easy to digest. Stop curating your inner world for external comfort. You invite your shadow to speak. Not to take over, but to return what was lost. Because the parts of you you've spent years hiding might just be the ones that can set you free. The world rewards visibility. Speak up, be loud, stay relevant. We've confused being seen with being real, but what if visibility is a trap? What if the constant need to update, explain, perform has nothing to do with truth and everything to do with survival? You weren't meant to be a brand, you were meant to be a soul. And your soul doesn't need applause, it needs quiet, it needs roots, it needs places to breathe where no one is watching. Carl Jung said the ego is a surface phenomenon. It wants validation, visibility, control. But the self grows beneath that surface, slowly, silently, unseen. You're not behind, you're just underground. Like a seed that splits open in the dark. There's no cheering, no spotlight, no likes, just quiet movement, quiet becoming. But we've been taught to fear the silence, to avoid the unseen, to measure our worth by how often we appear. So we post, we overexpose, we mistake noise for momentum. You post something vulnerable, it doesn't land, you delete it. Not because it wasn't true, but because silence scared you more than rejection. That's not growth, that's performance addiction. Let it go. Let the neon sign burn out. Let the algorithm forget you. Let your reputation fade for a while. Not because you're giving up, but because you're growing down. The doctor who cried in the hallway wasn't failing. She was freeing herself from the armor, the applause, the story of strength that required self-abandonment. You've done enough. The deepest work doesn't happen on display. It happens in stillness, in sacred privacy, in rooms no one sees. You don't need to care about being impressive anymore. You need to care about being aligned. Let them wonder where you went. Let the silence say what noise never could. One day you'll rise quietly, powerfully, authentically. And this time it won't be for them, it'll be for you. The world has trained you to speak constantly, to explain, to update, to prove. If you're not seen, do you even exist? If it's not posted, did it even happen? Visibility has become the new oxygen. But what if it's choking your soul? You weren't designed to perform every waking moment. You were designed to build depth, and depth requires disappearance. Stop caring about being watched. Start caring about what you're actually becoming. Carl Jung called the ego a surface phenomenon. It craves attention. But the self? The self grows in stillness, beneath the noise, beneath the eyes of others. The seed does not break through the surface by screaming louder. It grows by surrendering to the dark, unseen soil. It digs down before it ever reaches up. And maybe that's you right now. Not failing, not falling behind, but rooting. Let the others shout, let them chase visibility. Let them trade substance for spectacle. You? You're building something the algorithm will never understand. But we forget, we scroll, we compare, we feel behind. And so we perform, post, prove, pretend. We give ourselves away for validation we don't even believe in. You check your feed after posting something real. No likes, no shares, you delete it. And for what? To avoid feeling unseen? That moment right there, that's when your soul gets abandoned. Not by others, by you. So let this be the shift. Let the neon sign flicker and die. Let the curated identity dissolve, let the applause fade. And let your silence do what noise never could. The doctor who finally wept in the hallway wasn't breaking down, she was breaking free. From the role, from the armor, from the invisible contract to always be composed. The self does not grow in the spotlight. It grows in the sacred privacy of inner truth. Stop caring about whether it looks like success. Start caring about whether it feels like you. Let them wonder what you're working on. Let them think you disappeared. Because one day what you've built in silence will rise. And when it does, it won't be for applause. It'll be for you. And this time you won't need to explain it. You've tried it all: scheduling, optimizing, goal setting, pushing harder. And for a while it worked. But now, you're doing everything right and still feel off. The harder you try to force it, the more the world pushes back. You call it ambition. But your body calls it panic. You say it's progress. But your soul feels like it's suffocating under the pressure of always needing to know what's next. There's a moment, quiet and disorienting, when you realize life isn't ignoring you. You've just been too loud to hear it. Carl Jung said that synchronicity, the meaningful alignment between inner experience and outer events, only becomes visible when the ego quiets. When you stop trying to will everything into place and allow the world to meet you halfway. But silence doesn't feel safe to the ego. It wants answers, timelines, guarantees. So we push harder, build more backup plans, stay 3 steps ahead. Try to outrun the unknown. And in doing so, we miss the very thing we were looking for: alignment. You weren't designed to control it all. You were designed to respond to what's real. And reality doesn't arrive by force, it arrives by rhythm. The artist who deleted her strategy board didn't give up on her dream. She surrendered her grip. She stopped choreographing her evolution and let her creativity emerge again, not as output, but as intimacy. Stop caring about control disguised as clarity. Start noticing the signals you've been dismissing. The conversation that lights you up, the coincidence that keeps repeating, the stillness that doesn't feel empty anymore. You've been calling them distractions, but maybe they're invitations. There's a Zen parable: a farmer's horse runs away. His neighbors say, "What bad luck." The horse returns with 3 wild horses. "What good luck," they say. His son breaks his leg taming one. "Terrible luck." The army comes but doesn't take his injured son. "What luck," they say again. The farmer just shrugs, maybe, because wisdom doesn't rush to label everything. Wisdom waits, listens, flows. That's what happens when you stop forcing. You begin to see, you begin to trust. And for the first time, your intuition isn't drowned out by your itinerary. Let the river carry you. Not because you're giving up, but because you finally realized that swimming upstream isn't a virtue, it's a misunderstanding of the current. Lao Tzu said, "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." So stop caring about being early. Stop chasing the timeline that was never yours. Your soul doesn't care about your schedule. It cares that you're listening. And once you do, life starts speaking again. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives in the quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like a homecoming. Not because everything outside is perfect, but because something inside no longer needs to be. You've spent years curating your identity, becoming the version of yourself that fits, pleases, performs. But at some point, even the well-constructed mask begins to crack. And when it does, you hear a voice you forgot, your own. Carl Jung said, "The self is the organizing center of the psyche, the totality of who you are, not just the fragments the world rewards. The self doesn't perform, it becomes." And when the ego finally gets quiet, the self begins to rise, not dramatically, not loudly, but steadily. It looks like this. You stop explaining, you stop chasing. You stop needing every room to applaud your strength. And in that pause, everything begins to work. Not because the world changed, but because you stopped changing to please the world. Every man doesn't win a trophy at the end of this story. He doesn't get a standing ovation. He gets something better. He gets himself back. The father who stopped chasing online relevance is painting again. Alone, no audience, no feedback loop, just color and breath. The doctor who cried in the hallway now leaves her mask at the door when she walks into her home. Her laughter is louder now, but not because she's healed, because she stopped hiding. The artist stopped worrying if her work was enough. It was hers, that was enough. This is what it means to stop caring, not to detach from life, but to return to it without begging for its approval. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude." And maybe that's what this was all along, a shift in attitude. Not from effort to apathy, but from control to presence. You don't need more achievements. You need to remember your center. You don't need to appear strong. You need to feel whole. And wholeness happens the moment you stop asking, "Am I doing this right?" And start listening for the answer that's been waiting inside you all along. The mirror no longer reflects an image, it opens. And what you see through it isn't a performance. It's a forest, wild, alive, rooted. This is where your real life begins. And this time you're not chasing it, you're becoming it.